Hello, my fellows. Today's goal is to set up the environment for project, but not for one project, but for many different projects, and set up all the necessary tooling for switching between those environments. And the environments should have some properties. It should be easy distributable or shareable. And if I want, it should go to a different host or different person easily. And it should be the same. Ideally, it should be exactly the same, bit for bit. Okay, let me show my notes. And first thing that we will be talking is 12-factor app. It's a guideline or set of practices about a way for developing software as a service or web application or something like distributed system communicating with different protocols like HTTP. And this guide has some neat features. It helps to solve a few different problems. It minimizes introduction of new engineer to the project, the problem related to this event. It increases portability of application following these practices, and it simplifies deployment, scalability, and other cool things that are required for such applications. But we won't be covering it today. It's not the exact topic, but we will take a few interesting parts of 12-factor app, and we'll use those parts for our needs. And first of all, let's define what is environment and what parts it contains. It will be very generic and can be applied to different projects, but I took 3 parts that I think should be in almost every project. First of all, it's dependencies, both language dependencies like libraries or maybe some code snippets and so on, and external applications, binaries, and other dependencies. The second one is tooling. Tooling can be everything that helps you to build, compile, or check the source code, and so on. And also, tooling includes some programs like PostgreSQL client, or maybe your cloud provider CLI tool for managing your deployments. And it's also the part of the project environment. And the last, but probably one of the most important things, is environment variables. It present in many operating systems. Today we're talking about Unix-like operating systems, so it's present here for sure. And it's a mechanism that allows to make such environments, and all our tooling today will somehow interact with environment variables. So let's start from dependencies and tools, and I extracted few quotes from 12-factor app. And first idea, that you have never rely on existence of something in operating system or in the environment of any developer who wants to interact with this project, because you can have different libraries installed in your operating system. You can have different version of the kernel and so on, which can bring a lot of unexpected issues. So we try not to rely on system packages, but we have to rely on at least one package. It's a dependency manager or a package manager or something that will bring the rest of dependencies. So we have to rely on one package, and it's a minimum requirement, but we try to have only one dependency, system dependency, and everything else should be managed by this dependency manager. And we will see if it's possible to have only one tool for managing all the dependencies of the project. The second part is configuration. The configuration contains different settings of the application. For example, if some feature should be enabled, or maybe some value of the port to listen, and so on. Its credentials, something that you will use to connect to remote server or API or something else, and backend services locators. It's URL of database or memcache or some other stuff that can be used by your application. It's not necessary, but it's just an examples of what configuration can contain. Hello, designer Nasser. Okay, about configurations. All of our configurations will be stored somewhere in the environment, and we strictly separate those configurations from our source code to be sure that your application follows that strict separation. You always have to be sure that if you share the current code with anyone, your credentials won't leak, and the settings of the environment, of the target environment. For example, you deploy your application, and on your production server it should be deployed on port something, and if the port is hard-coded somewhere in your source code, your application will be deployed on the wrong port on your production server. But if it takes the value from environment variable, it will pick up on your local machine port 800s or 8000s, and on the remote machine it will take port 80, and it will be correct. So yeah, that's mostly all about configuration and environment variables. And one more thing that I took from 12-factor app is backing services. Sometimes you need to have a database or maybe Redis or something else up and running on your local machine to continue development of your project. We won't be covering today how to do it, but there are a lot of tools for that. For example, you can use Docker Compose, Minikube, or many other tools. But you also can launch the Postgres directly if it is present in your environment, in the environment of your application, and the settings provided via some configuration file which is specified in some environment variable. The way we providing it actually doesn't matter for today's talk, but the locator to this backend service will be provided via environment variables and credentials for that, for sure. And another concept that I decided to mention, I called it environment gap. I also took those 3 entries from 12-factor app. And by environment gap, I mean that there are a few things that increase the pain during the development and using of the project. And environment gap can be split in 3 gaps. First is time gap. For example, the developer did some changes to the software, fixed some bug, added some feature, but the user of the software can't have those changes yet because it should be built, deployed, and released. And for example, for Linux distribution like Debian, this process can take few years before the new software with fixes and other stuff will be delivered to the end user. And it's also true for web applications. It can take a lot of time depending on your release cycle, release schedule, and your DevOps culture, and so on. So decreasing all of those gaps, we decrease environment gap between the developer of software and the user of software. But also we decrease the gap between developers and administrators of software too. The another thing is a personal gap. Different roles in the project or different people maybe not connected by the project but somehow interacting using it can have different tools, backgrounds, operating systems, and so on. And if you doesn't bring the environment with your project, they all will have a lot of pain during the building or deploying such software. So our projects should not rely on the environment of the end user and should decrease this personal gap by providing environment with the project itself. And tools, depending on host you're deploying to or the user you share with, it can have different tools. Also, shipping the environment that can be exactly reproduced, we can decrease this tool gap. So the people with different backgrounds and different tooling will have the easy way to set up and use the project. So our goal is, the secondary goal probably for today, is to decrease this environment gap for different people, hosts, and deploys. And the original goal is to have a tooling for switching between projects on our local machine. And let's start from tools that we will be using today. First tool is direnv. It is a utility, a very simple utility, which looking for a configuration file in the folder or parent folders, and if such a file exists, it updates environment variables for the current shell. Sounds pretty simple. Let's try and use it. For example, here I have a terminal. I will increase my font. And I will go to test project directory, and here you can see that if I type echo foo, it prints empty line because foo is not set here in this project. But there a file called .envrc, which contains a line export foo equal to foo. And I want to have this environment variable set when I am in the folder of this project. For that, I will install a package called direnv, and we'll add a line eval direnv hook zsh to my zsh rc config. I will do it with Guix home and my wrapper around Guix home called rd. And for that, I need to rebuild my home. Actually, it takes a second of view, but while I stream, it can take a little more. Okay, it rebuilt my home, and here I will launch my terminal again. Oops, my terminal. And we'll go to the test project directory. And now it says that envrc is blocked and I need to type direnv allow. I will do it, and you can see that it says that it's loading envrc and it exported a foo variable. And now if I type echo foo, we will see the value of this variable set. Cool. Now navigating to the project folder, I can get few environment variables set for me. But how to set environment variables which contains some private information? There are a few different ways, few different tools. I will show the simplest one using GPG. I have a file akgpg which contains some unreadable stuff, and sk2. Actually, the content is just encrypted with GPG, and I will open envrc. Probably not this one. I need to open the project, test project, and here I need to open envrc file. And we can see that here are a few comments, and one of them is setting environment variable called AWS access key ID, which just takes ak.gpg file and decrypts it with GPG. -d means decrypt, and the stuff at the end means redirect all the unnecessary information to def null. And after I uncommented those lines, I need to allow one more time, and now you can see it exported few more variables, and now I want to see the value of those variables, and you can see that the value of access key ID is equal to my access key, which is exactly the content of akgpg file. And you can see decrypted content of AK, and it exactly the same string as you can see here. We can do the same thing for the another environment variable, and let's do it again. Direnv allow, and now we see it exported one more variable, and now I have both secret key and access key. And now if I have AWS utility, I can use it to access the cloud provider API and bring up some instances with some stuff and so on. But I don't have AWS utility, so I need somehow to bring it inside my environment. And for that, I will be using Guix package manager, and direnv already have a special function which I can call using the syntax use Guix, and after that I can specify the packages I want to be installed in this environment. What actually happens here? The command Guix environment -ad hoc AWS CLI will be launched, and I will be in the environment where AWS available, and you can see I have a help for this command, and I can call it, and it will say something. Cool. And now I need to have this environment automatically set up and running for the project I am currently in. I will do it in the very simple way. Basically, what Guix environment command do is it setups few environment variables. For example, let's take a look at the pass variable. Pass variable is equal to this value, and after I type Guix environment ad hoc aws cli, pass variable will contain one more record here, and this is the path to the profile which contains aws cli binary. And if you take a look at this directory, we will see here that there is AWS binary and probably some dependencies of this binary. So there should be a way to have those environment variables set automatically when we just enter to the directory with the project. And if you type one more flag, if you add one more flag to Guix environment, we will get a string or a list of commands that set up all necessary environment variables. For example, here it just sets the path environment variable to the value containing the path to the AWS binary, and the rest of the path which was present before. Hi XX. You're actually not so late, we just started our demo and exploring the tooling that we will be using today. Okay, but let's take a look at more complicated example. For example, I want to have all the variables that are required to be set to build htop, not to have htop in my path and be available as a binary, but all the dependencies, compilers, libraries, and so on. We will type the following command, and it will show a little more commands which setting the environment variables. And here you can see that some C libraries will be added, some binaries will be added here, and we can take a look at this directory. It probably will have C compiler inside it. Does it? For example, GCC here. Yep, it has compiler and all other utilities that is necessary for building htop. Very cool. That means that we can take the output of Guix environment -- search passes and evaluate it. And after this code is evaluated, we will get our project environment set correctly. Israel Dov asks, is this basically nix-shell? Yes, it's a tool which is similar to nix-shell, but for Guix. Very similar. And here, what actually happens under the hood? Guix environment -- ad hoc aws cli -- search passes will be executed and evaluated. It's basically equal things here. And now let's take a look that it works. We need to allow one more time and see that path variable was updated, and now I have AWS available, but htop is not available. Let's add htop here, and one more time direnv allow. Nice, htop available here too. Cool. And if you will want to have not htop itself, but all its building dependencies, we have to specify it before ad hoc flag. And here we should see that variables exported will be all the necessary variables for building htop. Cool. And this trick I use for working on Guix project. Here you can see Guix job envrc, and here I just have this command, use Guix, which makes it possible to have all the building dependencies for Guix and for working on the project in a very simple way. Okay, we have one tool for deploying our application, but we need the language and libraries for that language. So let's create a Python project and update our environment one more time. Now I want to type Python, and boom, we have Python. I want to use PyTorch library, but there is no model named Torch. Cool. That means that we need to install PyTorch and update our environment one more time. Now we probably have Torch here, and let's take that it works. And we generated a matrix that was shown in the example of the documentation for PyTorch, which contains random coefficients. That means that PyTorch works, and we have all the dependencies that we need for writing our project. And actually we do it with Guix, but we also can do it with other tools. For example, here we can use something that adds packages to the virtual environment using pip, for example, and some other tools for managing virtual environments, and so on. But Guix has very neat property. Everything inside it is bootstrapped from the source code, and it guarantees, or at least provides some level of trust to the environment, and that everything here will be exactly the same on the different machine. But this command doesn't seems very reproducible, because when I update my Guix, those packages also can be updated. So we need to somehow log the versions of those packages to be sure that the environment we distribute will be the same on the different machine. For that, I define a special helper called rguix, which stands for Reproducible Guix. And instead of typing use Guix, I will be typing use rguix. And here I specify the same packages, but the command that will be used for providing the environment is a little different. The difference is here, the part with time machine -c ./channels scm. Every Guix installation has the current state of channels, and here you can see I use two channels, RD and Guix, and I can present it in more Lispy way. and it is the same content but in the form of as expressions. And using this information and the list of the packages provided here, we can be sure that the packages installed on my laptop will be equal to the environment on the different host of a different person. So here I type a command which takes my current state of channels and serialize them to the file. And after that, instead of evaluating Guix environment, I launch Guix time machine with exact version of channels and the list of packages provided here. And now such environment will be reproducible, and we will be sure that something that we distributed for as a person or for the host will be the same as our local stuff. And let's make sure that it works. Allow. It exported few variables and Python still works. Yep, AWS still works. And now we pinned to those channels. Cool. We already have ability to automatically update our environment variables. And this environment variables provides not only some values for our application, it also provides some credentials for the tools that we use. For example, for cloud provider management utility or database tool for issuing some queries. But it also provides the dependencies and the tools itself. So we have the binaries that we need for building or managing or deploying project. We have libraries, we have compilers, and so on. For specific language, we can use some other tricks. For example, generating packages for this language using some importing tools to Guix, or using the tool for that language, the package manager for that language, if it has a good level of reproducibility. We can use it directly, or we can use it, or we can use only one package manager, which is Guix. Both options are valid, and we already have our per project environment. The only step that will be cool to have is to have this environment automatically set inside our text editor or IDE. In my case, it will be Emacs, and it's done using a package called envrc. Envrc is very similar package to direnv.el, but with slightly different implementation, and I prefer it a little more than direnv.el, but you can use whatever you want. I have very simple setup for it. I install the package itself from Guix package manager. I add a hook after init hook which launches envrc global mode, and with a val after load envrc, I just add a binding for envrc command map, which provides few commands for allowing, denying, and reloading environment. And now if I go to my test project, boom, test project, and I open nix-shell here and type make, it will say that there is no make command. And let's do the same for RD project. I have eShell for RD and type make, and you see that make started evaluating something. So I have for different projects different tools, and they don't interfere with each other and with operating system packages, which is quite cool. And also I set up environments in the way they are very reproducible, and which helps to reduce the environment gap between my environment and all other environments for other people, hosts, and deploys that present in this project. And now I can open manual for make, and I can read it, and it's quite good. But for test project, it will also open a manual for make. Probably because it cached somehow. Well, let me check. I will kill the buffer, and one more time. Oh, now it doesn't. Okay, it's because I didn't close the buffer, and that is why it just switched to existing buffer. But now you see when I closed the buffer, it doesn't open it anymore. The problem here that I've not solved yet. For example, even in RD shell, if I type info make, it will open some random page for techinfo instead of opening the info page for man or for make, for GNU make. And it can be solved by setting info. Okay, I doesn't have this comment here. We can set something like info directory list. Yep. To string split, I suppose. Split string. Good. Which string? Get env auth info pass, because I know that this environment, when I go to work RD, it sets correct info pass, which contains the manual for GNU make. And I need to split it by semicolon. Oops. By colon. Sorry. Because get env returns the string which separated by colon. And split string returns a list of values, and I will just set info directory list. And after that, if I type info make, it will open the GNU make page with the documentation for make, and it's quite big and contains a lot of stuff. Cool. We fixed our info, but our interactive call to man will not show make, and our interactive call to info, when we execute it, will not have GNU make. Oh, it have. Cool. Okay, that's mean after complete for interactive call to man doesn't show completion for make, but info for some reason. Let's check it one more time. Contains the manual for make. Very cool. Nice. The solution will be probably to set some hook which updates info directory list when envrc evaluating environment variables and sets them for current buffer, for current project. Probably not very hard to implement. Not expected by design from Emacs developers, because they didn't expect that info path will be updated per project, but nice thing to have. Cool. And according to our demo, we got almost every point that I had. Another interesting point is about channels. For example, if I type Guix environment Leningen, it will show, it will say that there is no such package. But if you take a look at, okay, if you take a look at channels SCM, you will see that here I use non-Guix channel, and inside this non-Guix channel we have non-GNU packages closure, and it has Leningen jar packaged. So we have Leningen project in a separate channel, and we can include this channel in our channel SCM. Not this one. envrc test project. And here we can install Leningen in our environment, and it will be installed from this channel, which is not present in my system, but because we use unusual command which invokes Guix time machine and creates environment using this channels file, we will be able to install the dependencies from different channels. Bam. Okay, we also need Java to be present in the environment to make it work. IST. Actually, I expected to pull Java as a dependency, but yep, maybe there's some reason not to do it. Cool. Leningen works, and it's installed from a separate channel. Let's go back to our notes. The problems. Two problems with after completion for man pages. A problem with info that we probably partially solved. It's necessary only to make this solution more accurate and clean. And another problem is higher startup time. When we switching directories, you saw that there's some delay while direnv evaluates envrc file and calls Guix environment, which takes some time. And actually, Guix time machine works a little slow because probably doesn't cache too aggressively and reevaluates some code which probably can be reduced by another wrapper around Guix environment, which will decrease this startup time and will make it instant or something like that. I hope there was a word which is correct. Okay, and what we got today? We got an ability to have different environments for different projects with their own tooling and dependencies and all the stuff and configurations, and we can share those environments with people and different deployments, hosts, whatever, and now we can decrease the environment gap and can deliver software faster, and we hide this high border between developers, administrators, and users, and it's very obvious, especially in Guix world, where every user can become a contributor or even maintainer, and every user can take something that other developer work on and build it easily. For example, right here I demonstrated the example where I take a package which is present in some separate channel which was created by different developers, and I use it without too much effort. I just added a channel to the channels file and just specify the package I want, and it was built from the source code, and the environment shipped with this package, the environment which is completely the same as the developer's environment, which is cool. And that's all for today. Thank you for your attention. If you have any questions, you can ask them in Mastodon. I have the link under the video, and maybe you can find my email, or you can find me in mailing list, GixDevil or RDDevil. See you soon. Bye.